Welcome everybody to Lead Forward Summit once again 2025, where we inspire leaders through mentorship. My name is Rukewe Abro, and I will be the session moderator for this session. I'm a project manager as well as a trainer and a speaker. So before we start, I would like to mention some housekeeping rules. Please note that the chat is disabled. Please put your questions in the Q&A session. If we've got time, we would review and address your questions, and we would enable your audio if there is enough time to allow you to, ask your questions. Today's session is how to raise successful people. And I would like to, first of all, introduce to you our keynote speaker, Esther Wojcicki, who is a mother, an educator, and an author. Esther would be exploring key factors in raising successful people, running a successful business, and building satisfying relationships. Esther is also known as the godmother of Silicon Valley because she has raised, inspired leaders as well as her children as well. I would like to introduce usher in Esther to start her session. Please give her a warm virtual welcome. Over to you, Esther. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here and excited to be here. The title of my talk is How to Raise Successful People. So it's not just successful children. It's children that become successful people and be able to contribute to the world. So I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about myself, just so you know who's talking to you. I was the California Teacher of the Year in 2002. That's for the entire state. I'm the founder of the Palo Alto High School Media Arts Program, which is the largest journalism program in the world. There's 800 kids taking journalism in Palo Alto right now, every year. Co-founder of Journalistic Learning Initiative at the University of Oregon. I'm the former chair of Creative Commons. Most of you probably don't know what Creative Commons is, but it's the legal infrastructure behind the open web. I have 3 honorary doctorates, and I'm also the founder of this foundation, Global Moonshots in Education. This is what Ruki was talking about. I was given this unofficial title by my students, Godmother of Silicon Valley, legendary teacher, and mother of a super family. So these are my 3 daughters, Susan, Janet, and Anne. Susan in the blue, Janet is black, Anne is in the red. And this is my daughter, Susan, who unfortunately got non-smoker lung cancer last year, and she passed away in August. And she was the CEO of YouTube. And as you know, YouTube is the largest website on the web. It has about 1 billion downloads and hits a day. And her main focus was also education. It is the largest website for people who want to be educated about anything. It can be how to change your faucet. It can be how to learn a language. There's YouTube videos for everything. And this talk is given in honor of my daughter, Susan. So I wrote this book and came out in 2020 called How to Raise Successful People, Simple Lessons for Radical Results. And it's in 31 languages around the world. So it's an international bestseller. And I'd like to recommend that people get it because not only do you learn how to raise children, you learn how to interact with your relationships, and you also learn how to interact with people at work. So a main principle in the book is something you probably can relate to. It's TRICK. I put together this acronym to help you understand what I think is important and to remember it. So TRICK stands for trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness. So you want to trust your children or trust your colleagues, have respect for their ideas. Respect, by the way, means listening. It doesn't necessarily mean doing what they say. Independence, collaboration. In other words, instead of being a dictator, collaborate. and K is treating everyone with kindness. The world today needs much more kindness. So Trick works well in all relationships, parenting, teaching, mentoring, and your interpersonal relationships. And the examples, actually, there are many examples in the book. So Trick, unfortunately, is missing from most schools worldwide. And that's been my passion for the past few years, seeing what I could do to change the school system, because it basically focuses on memorization and following instructions. And so when people get out of school, they don't have any experience coming up with innovative ideas because they've been so used to memorizing. So this has resulted in a lot of depression in students. This is 8th grade, 10th grade, and 12th graders. These are the percentage of students who are depressed. And they say things like, I can't do anything right. My life is not useful. I don't enjoy life. So if we can improve the school system, we might be able to improve the lives of all these students. So not only are they depressed, but they aren't learning. So according to the US Department of Education, 54% of US adults, so that's about 130 million, are reading below the 6th grade level. Below the 6th grade level. You should understand that. That is one of the reasons why many people in the United States didn't really understand what was coming with Trump, because they couldn't read a lot of the information. So you just might want to think about that. I'm very, very worried about what's going on. So Trick is missing, as I said, from most parenting. That can be seen in the boom in kids' smartwatches. Did you know they're selling like crazy smartwatches? All these kids, little kids, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, all being given smartwatches because the parents are worried that something might happen to their child and they want to be able to contact them right away. So this has resulted in the helicopter parenting syndrome. And what it does is the child has no or very little freedom. The parents organize everything, play dates. They can't walk alone home from school. They can't set up their own activities. If they get a bad grade, the parents know about it even before the child comes home, because the school sends that information. So it causes behavioral problems in children, and it's related to this depression. This is a cartoon to make you laugh, but also has a very important message. Honey, when you grow up, I want you to be assertive, independent, and strong-willed. But while you're a child, while you're a kid, I want you to be passive, pliable, and obedient. So it's so crazy. If you want your child to be passive and obedient, they're not going to grow up to be assertive and strong-willed. They practice all those behaviors when they're children. So it's best if your child is able to be independent, and don't get upset if you have a strong-willed child. That's a great asset for that child. So also I have this new app that just came out, it's in beta right now. It's coming out this month. And what it is, it's an AI app helping parents to learn how to parent with the Trick method. And it's personalized. So you can put your child's name and age, and it will give you the answers. If you ask questions, it'll give you answers on how to respond to your child, to empower them, to make them feel better about themselves. So it's on both the Android and the Apple Store, and I just wanted everyone to know about it. So few companies also include Trick in their company culture, but they should. All employees, they want to be treated with trust and respect. One of the main reasons people leave is because they don't feel appreciated. There's no kindness. There's no collaboration. So I'll tell you one company that includes trick in everything, and this is an important example for everyone to know because this company did very well. Google. Google takes really good care of their employees. If you're hired, you get food, you medical care. They help you with if you want to learn something new. If you don't like what you're doing in your job, they give you an opportunity to look around the company, see if there's something else you want to do. They treat their employees really well, which is why Google succeeded the way it did. We want more companies to include trick. So the causes of workplace stress, workload, lack of support, violence, threats, bullying, all these changes at work without them being part of the change decision-making team. So it's really important for everybody to use trick. So Susan had great leadership, and it's pretty hard to execute. She gave us a great master class. She mentored those around her to be their best. She took a lot of the trick philosophy and used it in work. So what mentoring is, and this is what we're doing here today, is hopefully helping people be mentors and be support for each other. Mentoring can help with motivation. You can give advice. It actually helps you succeed, gives you direction. Coaching, you don't have to be an expert to be a mentor. You just have to be there listening and helping somebody work out whatever they are working on at the time. What are their goals? You suggest training. You don't have to be the trainer. There's so much training available on the web, but everyone needs a mentor. So these are the key aspects of my daughter Susan's leadership style: diversity and inclusion. She actively promoted gender equality and inclusion, working to increase female representation at YouTube, advocating for policies that support diverse workforces. I know in today's world, we're not doing anything with diversity and inclusion and equity, but we're still doing it, whether we talk about it or not. And she worked on work-life balance, prioritizing employee well-being and advocating for healthy workplace, open communication, so fostering an environment where open dialogue happened all the time, a data-driven approach. So she made decisions based on data, not just on willy-nilly, whatever you feel like doing at the moment. And if you just look at YouTube, she empowered all those creators. She gave them a platform where they can showcase all their work. And she believed in creators. And she also had a risk-taking mentality, which is what I focused on in my school, my class. Don't worry about taking a risk. You'll still get an A. All you have to do is revise. You write an essay and it's not good, just revise it. Write an article and it's not good, revise it. We'll figure it out so you can make it into a good essay. So when in doubt, talk it out. It's so important for people to talk to each other and not just go home, and be upset about things. This is also for your home, for your family life. Create a family media contract with kids so that they know what you expect from them. You have an action plan, and also remember to keep the dialogue going. Always keep the dialogue going. Kids should always feel like they can come home, talk to the parents, and the parents will support them even if they've failed. Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation. When you make a mistake, that's how you innovate. If you could do it perfectly the first time, it wouldn't be innovation. And so you want people to feel like they can make mistakes. They can do whatever it is that they're interested in doing. And don't worry about making a mistake. You can always revise. And there's a great speaker, Brene Brown, who is, I don't know if you've heard of her, but you can look her up on the web. She's the one that said this. And she has also multiple talks on the web that are pretty interesting. So this is one of the problems, though, founder's dilemma, the co-founder conflict. This is why most startups fail. It's not that they don't have a good idea. They usually have great ideas. The number one reason they fail is because the co-founders fight with each other. So I don't know if you know the statistics, but for startups, less than 10% of the startups will succeed. So over 90% will fail. And the reason is because people fight with each other. No trick. So companies fail not for lack of good ideas, because the leadership team fails. So whether you are young or old, no matter male, female, whoever you are, if you're a human being, well, actually, I found out even dogs like this. You want to be treated with trick. You want to be trusted and respected. You want to have independence. You want to be collaborated with and not just told what to do. And you want to have kindness. Now, this is the last paragraph of my book, How to Raise Successful People. There are no Nobel Prizes for parenting or education, but there should be. They are the two most important things we do in our society. How we raise and educate our children determines not only the people they become, but the society we create. Thank you very much for your attention. And now I would be happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Esther, for that fantastic session. I've learned a lot. And one thing I've picked as well is that you said everyone needs a mentor. And a lot of people can also mentor others as well, which is really, really fantastic, especially with our core values and, inspiring leaders to become more of themselves. Before we go on, please, if you've got any question, kindly put it on the chat. My Q&A moderator that I'm collaborating with, Anaga, would be, collating all of your questions. If you have any questions for Esther, please let us know. But before, while the questions are being gathered, Esther, I've got a question for you. I was just thinking, as a mother myself, and I'm sure the audience were also thinking, how were you able to, you were raising your kids, you were, developing this framework. How were you able to do all of these things and still make them to be successful? Was there any time you experienced burnout, or how were you able to just juggle everything during that time?
You mean when they were little?
When they were little, as they were growing with your own career as a teacher, how were you able to juggle? Did you experience burnout or?
No, so part of the reason I did not experience burnout at school, because I was teaching at the same time, is because I was a very non-traditional teacher, which is why so many kids wanted to be in the program. I actually taught the kids how to be the leaders of the class. I gave them this opportunity. And the reason I did that is because I thought, well, I have a lot of experience being a leader. I don't need to practice anymore. They need to practice. And so the class they were in charge. They're the editors of the publication. Journalism works perfectly for this type of training because the student needs to collect information. They're writing a story, collect it, and then they have to decide what's most important. Because most people collect information and then they don't know what to do with all of it. But you have to decide what's most important, and then you have to write it up in a story so other people can understand it. These are skills every single student should have. That's why I'm pushing for every student in the country to have at least 1 semester of journalism training so they can have critical thinking skills. And so I didn't get burned out because my students were doing most of the work. And they loved doing it because they felt really happy that I trusted them so much that they could be in charge. So then I didn't, and then with my children at home, they also helped a lot. Children should do chores in the house, by the way. I should tell everybody that. Don't raise your children like little princes and princesses. They are part of the team, and research shows that when they're part of the team, they grow up to be really happy, well-adjusted team members, instead of expecting someone to do something for them. So that's how I did it. A lot of teamwork in the classroom, teamwork in the home.
Fantastic. And I think it's also tied down to one of your values, which is independence.
Yes,
That's fostering that habit of independence.
that's right. Independent. It was crazy. I had these kids doing so much work at school, and people said, "You mean they really do it?" And I was like, "With teenagers, the number one drive is independence. That's why they get into fights with their parents." I was like, I didn't have to convince them. They just all wanted to do it. It was great. And that's why I'm still in touch with so many of them because I did not boss them around. I was like, "You guys can figure out, what do you think we should do?"
Yeah, fantastic. And I think it also boosts that confidence in them that you can, you can just you believe in them to be able to do it without your help and just your
That's right.
guidance, of course.
That's
Yeah.
right. I believed in them that they could do it. And you know what? They did it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, we've got some questions coming in, and I will just read out this question from Hung. Hung is saying, for someone who is not in a position of power in an organization, how how would that person get to adopt the trick framework, especially against an established culture that is not aligned with it?
So one thing you can do is have a meeting with 1 or 2 members of the leadership team, and then give them this example I gave you. The number one most successful company in the world was Google, and they used this. And so there's a lot of research that shows this is the best way for a company to grow. So there's a lot of books out there. I was thinking of writing a book for corporations also, but I haven't had a time. I have another book coming, but it's about my students. But that is what you should do. And there's a book by a man named John Doerr, Doerr, that I would recommend that people get. It's a very intellectual book, however. I think the best thing to do is just meet with them and then give them those examples, especially the example of how more than 90% of the companies fail because the leadership team fights with each other. Can you
Okay.
believe that? That's ridiculous.
Oh, wow. Okay. We've got another question here from Fabiana. How do you deal with insecurity? I've lived in a city very dangerous, and I think you answered this in your book as well. And even I would like to leave and encourage them to be more independent. So I'm guessing this would be their kids. I still feel insecure. On the other hand, I know it's important. So how do I deal with this insecurity?
So I think there's a lot of insecurity here in the US today. And so one thing that most people are insecure about is letting their children walk to school by themselves and walk to the store by themselves. So I think it's very hard to make parents feel comfortable doing this. So instead of working on that, I would suggest that they work on giving their child more independence at home, more independence in making decisions at home. Um, because, I live 3 houses from a school, 3 houses from the school, and none of the kids in the neighborhood are walking to school. The parents are either walking with them or driving them. and then they don't drop them at the front of the school. They walk in the school to put them in the classroom. That's how, so we have an epidemic of fear, and it's probably not really realistic because the world actually is safer for kids now than it was before. But the parents watch all this stuff on the web or in movies or wherever, and so then it makes us all afraid. I can tell you in other countries in the world, this is not as big of a problem as it is in the United States. I was just in Germany, and my nephew, they live in Germany, he is 4 years old, and he rides his own little scooter to school. It's just it's 4. Yes. But he's not alone. The kids do that. So here we are in the US. Also, my daughter, Janet, lived in Japan for a year in Tokyo. Her kids, who did not speak Japanese at the time, they eventually learned, took the subway by themselves. They were 6 and 8 years old. And so I tell you, if you want to go on a really nice, safe vacation, go to Japan. It is the best country. There's no crime. People are so nice. They help each other. So anyway, there are cultures out there where there's not so much fear, but here in the US, there's a tremendous amount of fear. And also, now with the Trump administration, everybody is afraid of everything. Sorry, I don't know what we're going to do about that.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Steve is, have you ever faced social stigma when expressing your ideas? So I'm guessing that will be the trick framework and when you started.
No, never. Nobody has ever, they all want to do it. Everyone wants to do it. I've never seen anybody that doesn't want to do it.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay, another question from Kevin, it's a long one. I live in Silicon Valley and I have a 15-year-old daughter attending Silicon Valley High School. It's competitive, it's stressful, it has financial success-driven parents who are high achieving and high income and highly educated. Mom and I are doing our best not to put additional pressure on her. We encourage her to sleeping on the weekends, and not take excessive classes. So the question is, how do we balance keeping our daughter from getting drowned in the Silicon Valley success, lifestyle?
So my sympathies, I totally understand, 100%. There is way too much pressure. So at the Gun High School, Palo Alto High School, all the private schools, you would think that everybody in the world was going to college, and probably the college your kid wants to go to and can't get into. But I just want you to know what the statistics are. The number of people in the United States who have completed 4-year college degrees, only 13%. So that should give you some perspective. Also, with my daughters, I always said, you don't need to get a straight A average. None of them had straight A's. But what you need to do is be concerned about helping others and showing that on your application. So they can apply to private schools like Stanford. Of course, they don't get in. There's only 4% of the kids are accepted. But there's another way into the UC systems, Berkeley and UCLA. If you go to a community college for 2 years and you get a B average, which is actually pretty easy to do, you can then automatically, you're accepted into the UC system. They will take you at any of the schools. So I would cut back on all the pressure on your child, because there are other ways to succeed. And if you take a look at the CEOs of major companies in the United States, most of them, not only most, I think almost all of them, none of them graduated from a Ivy League school, or few of them. If I just look at Google, Sundar Pichai, he grew up in India. He did not have an Ivy League education. And look at Microsoft. Look at all the CEOs of these major companies. So, and Mark Zuckerberg, okay, he got into Harvard, but then he dropped out after like one semester. So I think the most important thing for your daughter or your son is to feel good about themselves and feel that whatever they do that didn't work out, they can revise it. And that's what my daughters did, by the way.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. Just to add to it as well, in your book as well, you talked about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And I think this is where you are driving to answer that question. Just having that growth mindset can help your child to succeed. Okay, we have another question from Bernardo and Emma. Journalism training. I've never heard about that before. I've had 3 dyslexic children, basic writing, and it's a nightmare for the whole family. And I'm not sure how to jump into journalism training and where I can get more info about this. Are there classes online to book for more? I think this is
Well, there should be more classes online. Actually, what I can do is probably put a link into some of the classes for journalism training. So if they're dyslexic, actually, it doesn't really matter for journalism training because dyslexic kids can collect information even if they're dyslexic. You can get it verbally. The idea is you want them to learn how to gather information. Just get it together either online or, verbal, interviewing people. And then after they get that information to come to be able to write it up. If they can't write well, maybe they can verbalize it well. And the lead of a story is the beginning of a story, the beginning of a news story or beginning of a feature story, whatever. The lead is 50 words long, usually. Those kids in my class had to put what they found into 50 words. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. They're called the 5 W's and an H. Actually, YouTube has some videos on how to write a news story for kids. And that is one of the hardest things for kids to learn to do because they're used to giving you a story chronologically. They're like, oh, let me tell you what I did this morning and in the middle of the morning and at lunchtime and at dinner and whatever. They don't think about what they did. They just list it. And that's why it took me literally 4 weeks to teach those kids how not to just give me a chronological account of what happened to them. I wanted them to think about what was most important that happened to them. So your kids can work on that. They can do verbal if they don't read well, so let them do verbal accounts.
Thank you so much for that answer. Another question from Luda. I've got a lot of questions. You mentioned in the beginning about helicoptering children when they were young. I'm afraid I've done that. My daughter is 17 now, and she lacks confidence and boldness, being that I did not instill enough independence and trust in her as a child. How do I fix it? How can I encourage her to be confident?
I think this is the question I get all the time because the country is focused on helicopter parenting. I think one of the first things that you can do to help her is to tell her that she can never fail because she can always revise. I mean, the only thing you can fail at is, of course, you don't want to run into the street in front of a car, physical things, and you don't want to jump in the pool if you can't swim. Otherwise, you want to be able to fail. And I think that's what's causing most kids to be inhibited is that they are afraid of failure. And so that's what I did with my students. I mean, I had some students in my class, one boy in particular, who had flunked every class in the 9th grade. And he then came across town to Palo Alto High School instead of Gunn and wanted to be in my class. You can imagine what that was like. He couldn't write a complete sentence, honestly. And I was like, what did you do for the last 9 years? In elementary school. But let me tell you, that attitude of it's okay to make mistakes and you can just revise, don't worry, that changed his life. And I can tell you today, he's a very successful businessman and he oversees billions of dollars. So, but he did stay with me for 4 years. He was there 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So he heard me saying that over and over again. So eventually stuck in his brain. So that's what you can do with your daughter or your son. And the main thing I would do is if it's a safety issue, I think that's something you just have to be concerned about. Don't let them walk around a shopping mall at 10 o'clock at night by themselves. That's not a good idea. But otherwise, all those mistakes they're making, I can tell you, it doesn't matter. They can be successful anyway. Yeah, I can tell you, Susan, my daughter, when she came back she's studied history and literature. And then when she came back from college, I said, well, so now what do you want to do with history and lit? And I said, oh, you should have thought about it 4 years ago. And at that point, she'd already majored in something that really didn't have practical application. But she went down to the bookstore and bought herself a book on how to code. And so that was it, the beginning of her computer career. So no matter what, you can always fix it as long as it's not, drowning in a pool or something like that.
So there's hope.
There is hope for your children that have been,
Yep.
yes, over helicoptered.
Yeah. Okay. Another question from Ken would be, love this presentation. More parents need to see this. But the question is, how can we inculcate presentation skills in kids?
How can you say that again?
How can we inculcate presentation skills in kids?
Teaching them how to present, you
How to
mean?
present, yes.
Well, they need to practice. That's the main thing. Have them practice to your family. Have them practice, have in their little clubs or whatever. What I did in my class, the reason that class became so popular is because what I gave the kids was freedom. Freedom to fail, freedom to do what they wanted, freedom to write about stories that they wanted. And so I used to have a group, in every class, there was a group of students that were basically mute. They didn't want to say anything at all. It was clear that they were afraid to make a mistake. And I would actually pick on those kids and have them present in front of the class. And, they got to be really good after a while. It's just practice. And let them practice on you. Or let them practice on, your family, get them all together, and then they can do a little show or something. Let them come up with some ideas. I have a 9-year-old, now she's 10-year-old granddaughter who does a lot of practicing. I'm not kidding, crazy things she's doing. And she's making little videos to post on Instagram or, I don't know, post on TikTok or something. That's an opportunity to practice.
Okay. All right. Another question from Christine is, and I think you've touched on this, but let me just maybe you can add more to it. How do you get your children to push themselves to be the best and go out of their comfort zone? For example, employees, are usually motivated by their paychecks, but for children, what do you think should be the motivation?
Well, let them work on whatever it is they're interested in. Like, for example, some kids love playing computer games all the time. And I had a grandson that was addicted to computer games too. He was 10 at the time. And so the thing was, you really like computer games? Oh my God, we should get you a computer that really specializes in gaming. It's like, oh, great idea. And so I said, the only thing is you have to build it yourself. So that's, let me tell you, he learned a heck of a lot building that computer. And then he learned a lot about playing gaming. And today he's doing a lot of technology. So you got to be clever, If your kid wants to do something like that, make them put it together themselves. Or I have another granddaughter, all she wanted to do was eat cookies. It's like, great. Now you're going to have to learn how to make those cookies. So let me just tell you, this is what it takes. Here's the flour and the sugar and the butter. Now you learn. So she became a great cook.
Oh, fantastic. That's good. So independence again.
It's
Okay.
independence. Yeah. You just stop relying on your parents all the time.
Yeah. Okay, I'll combine these two questions because we are running out of time. And both of them have the same thought process. Kindly give me more tricks to raise a daughter who has a strong personality and does not listen, and a son that have personalities totally opposite to mine.
So your daughter sounds great already. You want a strong personality. You want them to tell you what to do. I mean, you want kids like that. You just want to protect them from themselves. In other words, there's certain things you can't do. No going around at night doing crazy things. No getting in cars with people that drink alcohol or that do drugs. That's, don't do no risk taking in that area as long as you don't hurt yourself. So I think I think I would just encourage her. And with regard to your son, he sounds more fearful of making a mistake. That's the main thing that happens to these kids. They're like, oh, everybody's going to laugh at me. Did you know that the number one fear in the world, number one fear, is giving a talk, people laughing at you? Did you know that?
Oh, wow, no.
Yes. Well, I just want you to tell. And so getting down to a personal level, that's what's happening to kids. They're worried about being accepted. We're all social people, everybody wants to be accepted. And they're worried if they say something wrong and give a talk that nobody will like them. So just tell them, doesn't matter, just give the talk another time, make it better, do whatever. So, you need to support both of them in their personalities, and you can't make one into the other.
Fantastic. Because of our time, we would have to, wrap up now. Let's watch this short video of Esther and her daughter, Susan, and then we'll wrap up this session.
Hi, I'm Susan Wojcicki, and this is an interview with my mom, Esther Wojcicki. Welcome, Mom.
Thank you so much. I am particularly excited to be interviewed here with my firstborn child. I can't tell you how exciting this is for me.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about your background and where you came from and what's your career and a bunch of other questions.
Okay.
So I thought it might be useful for people to know first a little bit about what it was like for you when you were growing up.
Okay. Well, thank you for asking. Yes, briefly. I'll try to be as brief as possible. So I was born in New York City, and I spent the first 6 years of my life there. And then I moved to Los Angeles. And I came from a family that was an immigrant family. My mother was born in Russia, in Siberia, and my father was born in the Ukraine, and they met in New York City. And my father was an artist, and my mother actually didn't have an occupation. And so when I was growing up, we were actually pretty poor.
How did you get on the path to be able to have a education, more education than your parents had, and have a really successcul career? What do you think happened that enabled you to achieve so much with your life?
Yeah, what happened was that I didn't want to live in the same impoverished environment that my parents were living in. And I saw the only way out was education. And so actually at the age of 10, I decided that was it, and I was going to get out. And I was going to study as much as I possibly could and learn as much as I possibly could.
It's great, Mom. You have it's great that you were able to see the path and decide you wanted to go to college, which I know was really difficult.
Yeah, it was very tough.
But then you decided you were going to become a teacher, and you've been a teacher now for almost 50 years, if not more than 50 years, which I don't think a lot of people can say. Tell me, like, why did you decide to become a teacher?
Well, actually, I was not just a teacher, I was also a journalist. So I continued my career as a journalist, but then I decided I wanted to be a teacher because I really like people and I wanted to help them be the best they could be. I also worked on a playground. For kids, I was the after-school sort of playground director, and I seemed to have this really sort of miraculous ability to work well with kids. And they did everything that I said, and it was kind of remarkable. So then I thought, well, when I was in college...
Did you do everything you wanted as kids?
No, you didn't, but I tried. But so I'd have a philosophy that actually worked pretty well with you, too, and your two sisters. And the philosophy was, it's encapsulated in this little acronym I created for the book I wrote, Moonshots in Education. It's TRICK is the acronym. So it's trust, respect, independence, collaboration, and kindness.
So, Mom, you always have kind of a silly side to you, where you're always laughing and doing something unexpected. Where did that come from? How did you turn out so crazy, Mom?
I'm not totally crazy. I'm just partially crazy. It's just that I think it's really important to enjoy life. You know, if you have two ways of looking at some really bad, difficult challenges. One is to cry and get really upset, and the other is to just have some humor about it and then move forwards.
Well, so one of the things I wanted to ask you is a little bit about your parenting style, which is a little strange for me to ask you about as your daughter, because I know about your parenting style, but I think it'd be really useful for other people to know about your parenting style. And in particular, you have 3 daughters, and both Anne and I are CEOs of companies in the tech area, and there aren't a lot of women CEOs of tech companies. And then our third sister is an epidemiologist at UCSF. So I want to know, like, what did you feed us for breakfast, Mom? What happened?
Oh, what did I do? I gave you a ton of freedom, and I let you pick your own breakfast cereal. But actually,
as long as it didn't have sugar in it.
As long as it didn't have any sugar in it, that's right. You had to have a cereal that didn't have any sugar. But I gave you a lot of opportunity to pick all kinds of things in your life. Like, for example, I forgot how old you were, maybe 5 or 6. You picked that hot pink rug for your bedroom. And we had to live with that for 10 years. It was like fluorescent pink.
It was the color of your shirt, actually.
It was actually even worse than that. No, and it was shag. And I mean, who gives their 5-year-old child an opportunity to do that?
But you think the number one thing is giving empowerment to your children by giving them some independence?
Yes. So I think in today's world, parents don't give kids enough independence. Or they're worried if they don't control their education and control what's going on, that then the kids might not succeed.
All right, so one other question I have for you is you have always been really tall. So when you were 13, you were already 5'10", and your mom was 5'1". Is that correct?
That's correct.
How did you handle it, and how do you think other people should handle whatever issue they have that they're uncomfortable with, that they can't change?
To other women out there, no matter what your body type is, you're too tall, too thin, too fat, too whatever, first thing you have to do is accept yourself, no matter what. And you have to realize that the most important thing in life is not how you look, it's like who you are. And that is who you are and what you bring to society, which is what I guess it taught me. What was most important to me is that I could do things to help other people. even though I was tall and kind of gawky looking at that point, I was still a good human being, and it worked for me.
Well, thank you, Mom, so much for your interview.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for inviting me and for listening to me.
I learned so many new things. I learned new things from being your interviewer. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yay. All right, thank you, Mom.
So exciting to be here and do this with you.
Oh, wow, fantastic. That was so touching. Thank you so much, Esther, for this fantastic session. It was warm, it was lovely, it was beautiful. I've learned a lot personally, especially for my growing kids. I want to thank you, and I also want to encourage the audience to please give a virtual round of applause to Esther Wojcicki. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you.
I'm very happy I was able to be here, and I'm very happy that you found it really helpful.
Thank you so much, Esther. Have a beautiful evening. Oh,
thank you.
Morning at your side. Please, we encourage you to run the survey, and anybody that runs the survey will receive a 1-month free subscription for every session survey completed. So for example, if you complete 6 session surveys, you get a coupon for 6 months free subscription as a mentee. Isn't that fantastic? And then the first 10 respondents will be eligible to receive exclusive giveaways, including the mentoring club, T-shirts, headwear, and caps. This is there's a shipping restriction. This would also just be within the US because of the shipping fees. We also have premium workshops if you want to unlock your leadership and potential with energetic leadership skills, overcome imposter syndrome, develop your leadership brand. Please scan the code, and there will be a link on the chat as well to get a 25% off discount when you sign up today. If you would like to, of course, register as a mentor and a mentee, please scan the QR code as well, and then we will be happy to contact you. Get access to all recordings of these 13 sessions at initially $13. But if you sign up today, you would get a 9% off discount. The next session would be a panel discussion, diversity as a leadership asset, building inclusive futures. Thank you, everyone. I would pass on to Ian for a short video about the mentoring club. Thank you. And please enjoy the journey.